Thank you so much for watching, and big thank you to all of my Patreon supporters. If you would like to see your name listed in the credits of all of my videos, go to patreon.com/discgolfnerd. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Disc Golf Nerd Plastic Podcast. In this episode, I wanted to talk to you guys about my recent dyeing video and also a few other topics that I have on my mind. So you may have seen it the other day. I posted a video where I figured out that I can, in fact, dye a disc golf disc using nothing but turmeric and vinegar. The thing that made me think about this was I know how to make pickles, basic like burger pickles. Essentially, is what I use them for. It's a really simple process. Hey, why not? I mentioned it in the video. I'll give you guys a quick breakdown now. All right, so you slice the pickles thin into like coins. Essentially, is how I like to do it. Salt them pretty good. Toss them in a bowl of salt, and then you heat up white vinegar. You can add other vinegars to it if you want a different flavor. I usually just use white vinegar, dill, turmeric, a little bit of salt in that as well, some mustard seeds, and anything else. Maybe you want some garlic in there, any other kind of flavors you want to add to it. You heat that mixture up until it gets pretty hot. You can let it boil for a little while and kind of steep a little bit and let everything release its kind of flavor. Then you pour it over the cucumbers, and you're basically done. You can do that. I call them quickles because they're like quick pickles. Really easy to do, and it's a really cool way to be like, hey, spice up a barbecue or something to have your burgers and have some homemade pickles that you made just real quick and easy. And then you can just slice the pickles into a jar or other container. After you salt them, pour the liquid in there, let it cool for a while, and then just stick it in the fridge, and they're pretty much as good as any other pickle, and it's really easy and simple to do. But what I noticed is that if you spill that liquid on the countertop, just from like pouring it over the cucumbers, occasionally some of that liquid will get onto the countertop. It will stain it this weird kind of like fluorescent yellow. And so it started making me think, like, hey, if it can do that for a countertop, I've also noticed that at work, like if you serve a dish that has turmeric in it, it can stain a plate. It's like, man, if it can stain countertops and plates and stuff, there's a good chance it'll work on plastic. And I gave it a shot. You guys saw it in real time. None of that was like fake or anything. It was just me messing around, and I let the camera roll while I tried it out. And it seemed to work pretty good. I've actually had a few different people contact me and said that they did it to varying degrees of success. One thing I will note, like baseline plastics like DX, Pro D, Prime plastic, Retro plastic, none of those plastic types take dye at all. So it's definitely not going to work with turmeric. It won't really work with anything. Even back in the days when you do the RIT dyes, before they changed the formula, when that was still working with plastic, that was the original dye I ever used for my dip dyes, my stencil, electrical tape stencil video that I posted many years ago. That stuff did not work on that. iDye Poly does not work on baseline plastic. It has to be premium plastic. Somebody told me that they used like a Champion or Lucid plastic, and it worked, but not quite as well. That's to be expected for the most part. If it's like an opaque Lucid disc, like I've done like my old opaque Lucid Trespass, that one took the black dye really well, and it's held up well over time. So it kind of depends on the plastic, but like Champion kind of takes the dye, but I feel like Star or the old ESP, solid color ESP plastic from Discraft rather, and the Fusion and Goldline plastics are your best options for dyes in general. They take the dye quite well. They have nice blank opaque colors that you can see the dye and the design quite well. So yeah, just to note, with any dyeing technique, baseline putter type plastics, it's not going to work out for you. So somebody tried that and failed, but that's not surprising. One guy told me that he dyed some discs and it worked out well. They were super bright, and then he played around with them, and most of the yellow had kind of leached out by the end of the round. I thought that was really interesting. I don't know what could cause it to go away. Yeah, I thought that was super interesting. He said he was going to experiment with it some more and get back to me with his findings. I have not actually thrown any of the discs that I have dyed yet, but I will be doing so probably tomorrow or Saturday. I'll be throwing this Fury at least that I dyed and see if anything changes with it being in my bag and actually getting thrown. I really don't know how it could knock the dye off of the disc. I don't know. Maybe the sunlight kind of causes the dye to lose its color. I have no idea. So it'll be interesting to continue to experiment with it. Another viewer from Sweden was just super stoked, did it on a bunch of different discs, and was really happy with the results. And I told him to keep me posted with the durability of it over time. Also, I had some viewers let me know that they tried other things. Paprika, no go. Apparently, not strong enough for the dye. Paprika, commonly used in restaurant industry as like it has a flavor, but it's not like very prevalent. It's not very strong, so it's more used for like coloring things. Like if you want to have a little bit of that red color to a dish, you can add paprika. Sometimes we'll use paprika on like a plate just to kind of put some contrasting color there for the plating. But it is red, and it will, like if you add paprika to like a cream sauce or something, it will change the color. But it did not work with discs. And I believe someone also told me that they used beets, and that didn't work. That was my next thought. I was thinking, hey, I know that like beet juice, like if you're cutting beets or you're handling them, they'll dye your hands like purple. And I'm sure it works on things like cloth or anything like that. But I don't think it's going to work on plastic. And I think somebody had mentioned that they tried it and it didn't work. I was kind of thinking, what if I took beets and I either grated them or cut them up real small and then soaked them in vinegar, kind of like pickling them essentially, and then just put a disc in that and let it hang out for like a day. Like, would it take any color at all? I don't really know. That might be something we find out. Part of the reason I didn't do any more experimentation is I don't really have any other white premium plastic discs to play around with. I had that one Anchor that I used in the video, and then I decided to dye this Fury just because it worked out well, just to give it another try. But yeah, we'll see. I also feel like the same thing would apply with the turmeric. Like if you heated it up and mixed it with vinegar, heat that up, and then kind of leave it slightly warm, and then just soak a disc in that, like float it in it like a dip dye for a long period of time, maybe an hour or two, I think it would probably soak in really well. And I've actually been considering trying that with my Fury. I don't, really care if it maintains any of the white color. I could just dye it yellow and see how it goes. I like the yellow that it comes out with. It's an interesting color. And yellow is always a good color for a golf disc, which is why I was pretty stoked on this, is because it's a good, bright, contrasting color that's easy to see out there in the woods and out there on the course. So, I don't know. It was a fun experiment. I look forward to continuing to mess around with it and get more feedback from my viewership based on the success that they have or failures that they have, and just collect the data. I said in the video I have absolutely no idea how well it's going to hold up over time, and that's still the case. It was only I don't know, it was last week or something I posted that video a few days ago, and I'm sitting here looking at the Fury sitting on my table. It's still yellow as of right now. We'll see what happens when I get out there and throw it. Maybe it'll go away. It'll fade out. I really don't know. But either way, I had a great time making that stupid video, and it was a lot of fun. And it seems like you guys were enjoying it, and definitely pretty interesting that it worked at all, let alone how bright and nice it looked, at least initially. And I did also notice that if you shine a UV light on it, like a black light on it, it glows like crazy. That yellow turmeric really pops and glows. You can see more pictures of the discs that I dyed and the way they react to UV light. Also, some of the results from one of the viewers that reached out to me on my Instagram, at DiscGolfNerd1 on Instagram. If you're a fan of this show, you're a fan of my channel, definitely go check that out. I post all kinds of different stuff there, not just disc golf related things. So if you want to kind of stay more in touch with my day-to-day life for whatever it's worth, people like that in social media. I know I enjoy following different folks in the disc golf community and otherwise. You can find me on Instagram, DiscGolfNerd1. That is also my Gmail account if you have any questions for me. I actually left it open in my 7,000 subscribers giveaway contest. I left a slot in there for people to submit questions to me for an upcoming series of episodes with question and answer episodes. And I got a whole bunch of questions in there. I haven't even looked at that in a few days. The last time I looked at it, there was like 375 or so entries to that giveaway, which is like triple probably I think maybe 200 or so was the most I ever got before that, for one giveaway. So yeah, a lot of people entered into that. Almost half of the people who clicked on the video ended up entering, which is pretty interesting. Usually, it's not quite that significant. You know, maybe you'll get 150 or so. Yeah, I think I probably got close to 200, but I'm not sure I ever crested 200 before. So last time I looked at it, it was well over 375, I think. Yeah, 375, 380, something like that. So pretty crazy. Thanks so much for everybody submitting your questions, entering the giveaways, subscribing to the channel. I appreciate all of your support. So stay tuned for a full question and answer episode there. But if you do have like a question or something you want to ask me about, maybe you make a product or you represent a company that you'd like to talk to me about some kind of cross promotion, or hooking me up with some plastic to review, or a product that you want me to check out to show off to my viewers, you can reach out to me at discgolfnerd1@gmail.com. Or if you're just like a beginner or new player and you have a question about something you think I might be able to help, you can always leave it in the comments of my videos. I try to see and answer as many of those as possible. But if you have like kind of a longer question or something that's not necessarily pertaining to the particular video, feel free to send me an email. There's no problem there. So, Turmeric dies, a lot of fun. Speaking of giveaways, I still have the 7,000 subscribers giveaway contest is still live and active, so you can still enter that if you've not done so. I'm giving away a Glow ESP Thrasher, a Ricky T-Bird 3 and a Saki Bomb Mini, and also a Paul Macbeth Buzz and a Paul Macbeth Zeus. For that giveaway, I also have the Tiger Warrior giveaway. I'm giving away a pair of slightly used, just for the review only, Tiger Warrior putters from Discmania. Fantastic throwing putters, stable putting putters, low profile, really nice discs. If you have not seen that review, I'm giving those away. I'm also giving away a Prodigy MX3. Thank you to my buddy Big Anthony for hooking me up with that. He is part of the Prodigy Street team, and he gave us one to use for the channel, to review, and to give away to you guys, so I appreciate that very much. So you guys know I've gotten away from doing like tournament recaps. I feel like there's a lot of other podcasts that do that and probably do a better job than I did or would. But I do want to say, with a quick spoiler alert for the MVP Open, that final round was just a phenomenal watch. Just unbelievable stuff. Conrad throwing beautiful lines, even though he got into some trouble that kind of knocked him out of contention. Still throwing some great shots. Had an unbelievable eagle on 17 that was pretty sick. Huge throw, and then a big circle 2-putt. His like walk through step putt got to be the best in the game. I mean, who is hitting more of those right now than James Conrad? I mean, it's just unbelievable. All over the basket all the time. He drains more of them than anybody, it seems. And even if he's not hitting them, he's taking good runs. Basically, anytime he can see the basket, he's giving it a strong bid, even if he's really far out. He's ace running so many times this season. He's like hit basket and chains and aced, and I mean, he's just unbelievably accurate from all ranges, and it's really impressive to watch. Barsby draining huge putts, just dead center early on in the round, and just playing pretty solid throughout. It was nice to see Greg up there on a lead card as well, you know, being the recently dethroned reigning world champion from 2018. We really didn't see much from him beyond that. You know, it just wasn't really a lot going on with him this season. He's one of those players that, like, if everything's clicking and he's firing on all cylinders, he can beat. We've seen, obviously, he can hang and beat the absolute best players in the world. But he's one of those guys that if the putt's not dropping and he's so aggressive that it can, you know, go the other way pretty easily for him. He's not like the most consistent kind of player where he's always grinding out a consistent finish. He's like doing super well or not doing quite as well, but he's a really exciting player to watch. And when he's on, he's one of the best in the game putting, and his like throw at the basket, you know, like from 100, 150 feet, just trying to float a putter into the bucket. He's always trying to make it, and he makes more of them than you would think would be possible. And that was a really fun round to watch as well. Garrett Girthy, Paul Macbeth battling to the end. Paul, in particular, just having some of the most clutch putts and shots coming down the stretch that I can recall in a tournament. Just ridiculous stuff. He hits the birdie. He had a giant par save in there. He absolutely parks the shot over the water on, I believe, 14. Then he has a big par save coming up after that. Just huge putts over and over again. 17, he gets into a lot of trouble. Still kind of finds a weird, kind of sneaky gap to get into circle 2. Garrett ends up having the opposite but equally bad drive. Paul turned his too much. Garrett not enough. Garrett's on the left-hand side. He throws a forehand roller with a sonic to try to get into position, and then immediately just lays it up at the base of the basket, kind of daring Paul to run it. Maybe not the best plan, because Paul drains it and takes a couple of strokes into the final hole. The thing that's interesting about that, though, is like, of course, if Paul misses that and blows past the basket, he could potentially miss a comebacker or whatever, and it could be tied. You know, there was a lot of different things that could happen there. You could hit the tray and roll away. There's a lot of different things. It was a very dangerous putt to run, but you know he's going to run it, and you know it's likely he's going to hit it. The thing that nobody's really mentioned about this is that they still kind of didn't really know what was going on with Simon at the time. Simon was coming up in the second card and was doing super well and was definitely in contention for the win going into hole 18. So I'm not sure where the timing laid up, if Garrett was aware that Simon was still in position to potentially set a certain score that he would have to try to match to go into a playoff or whatever the case was. And or potentially Garrett just knew that his game plan was anything outside the circle on that particular basket, I'm going to lay it up regardless of the situation. I think that's valid to say that if he was playing the other rounds or going into it based on his practice rounds and stuff, that was his decision, that anything from that particular basket, it's definitely a death putt. There's a big drop off behind it. Garrett putts with a hyzer. If he misses right, it can go far away. It's just not really the best option. Garrett not known so much for his long-range putting. He's more of a long-range thrower and relies on his accuracy from throwing and approaching. Not necessarily one of the guys that you consider one of the best putters in the world. Obviously, he can putt well when he's on, but yeah, it's an interesting scenario for sure. And he lays that up. Paul hits another just disgusting, unbelievably clutch putt and was able to just walk it in with a par on hole 18. People giving Garrett a lot of grief for not trying to throw it in on 18 to tie it up, but I also tend to support that decision. I mean, what's the likelihood that he's going to throw onto that green and not only make the green but hit it into the basket from where he was? I mean, it's an incredibly low percentage. It's much more likely he's going to miss the island or something stupid is going to go on, and now he's dropping down third, fourth place or whatever. A solo second place at the MVP Open is absolutely nothing to be ashamed of in any way. It's one of the most difficult tournaments to win cash at in the world. All the best players in the world, incredible course. The competition, the level of competition is just through the roof, and I think it was probably the smartest play. Just lay it up. You know, it was extremely unlikely. And the thing that I also know, and kind of my opinion on this personally, is that Garrett is not in a position to just be like, hey, who cares about the few $100, several $100 I'm going to lose if I drop a couple of spots, missing the island, and then I go to the drop zone, and then I throw that up, and then maybe I don't make the putt after that, or whatever the case is. Garrett is out there on tour grinding it out. He's not like Paul or Ricky, who has enough money to just win or nothing, and who cares, you know, like just throw for broke and go for it. And if you drop down the fifth or whatever, who cares? You want it to win, and that's all that matters. You know, jockeying for position, taking a solo second there is making him at least a few $100, and that's important. That's helpful, and I think it was a smart move for a guy like Garrett in his position, and it kind of speaks to potentially why players like Paul or Ricky or, Simon and some of these guys that we can just know based on their star power and their contracts and stuff. We know they don't necessarily need that prize money. The prize money is not part of the equation for them. It's more just trying to win. That's why Simon will just go for broke and go for crazy shots. If he drops down to 10th, 15th place, whatever, you move on to the next one. I believe he gets a salary from Discmania. He's got plenty of money, and he obviously doesn't win much and is still out there on the road and seems to be doing just fine financially. So it doesn't really matter. And then with Paul and Rick, they obviously have plenty of loot, and they can just go for it as well. It doesn't really matter that much if they drop down a few spots or whatever. The concern isn't really there. It's win or go home money. They have that, and then not a lot of other players do. But anyway, that's just a quick recap of my thoughts on the MVP Open, because I was able to stay home and watch the entire live broadcast, and it was just an incredible watch that I really, really enjoyed. And a lot of interesting talking points coming out of that last round. But really, what it comes down to is it was just fun disc golf to watch, man. These guys are throwing beautiful shots, hitting incredible putts, and throwing beautiful drives. And I absolutely adore Maple Hill. It is like my number one place in the world that I have never been to that I would love to see and play. A lot of people have Milo as their bucket list course. Obviously, me being here in Portland, I have access to Milo. I don't play it as much as I probably should. Might rectify that tomorrow, depending on how things work out. Actually, that would be interesting. I haven't played there in a while. But anyway, for me, it's Maple Hill, and it's not even a question. I mean, if there's anywhere in the country, in the world, that I could go play around, and I could pick out of anything I know about, Maple Hill is definitely the first one I'm going to try. And then there's definitely some other ones. I really like the Jonesboro course. I think that place looks amazing. I would love to see that property and play around there, even though I'm sure it would just absolutely beat me up real bad. It's not at all my type of golf. It's long, uphill shots and stuff. It's not really my strength. I'm much more of a technical kind of woodsy player. I think I could maybe do halfway decent at Maple Hill. I mean, with the golds, gold layout like they play at the MVP Open, not so much. But I'm sure some of the lines out there I could do okay on compared to other places that they might play on tour. But yeah, Maple Hill just looks incredible, and I would love to get out there someday. And what an amazing final round at an event that seems to consistently produce drama and incredible battles. I think just due to the fact that it's such a fair, difficult, and well-designed, well-balanced course. We've seen playoffs, we've seen people miss the island, coming down the stretch. Ricky hits the rock wall, and rolls away, misses the island, and loses the event. We've seen stuff like that time and time again at Maple Hill, and I think it's a testament to how amazing that course really is. Same thing with Milo. How many times have we seen playoffs at Milo, it coming down to one stroke, that last putt? Again, this year, Seppo had to hit that last 35-footer to keep it going, and it's that close. The margins are so tight. It's very rare that we see somebody run away with it, and I think it's a testament to how balanced and well-designed those courses really are. Not to mention the just unbelievable level of play and caliber of players that are at those events year in and year out. As two of the most coveted events of the year, we see all the best players out there on a consistent basis, and to do well there and win at those type of events is an incredible achievement. Moving on from there, we finally saw the announcement of the first wave of retired molds from Latitude 64. From what I understand, I could be wrong here, but from what I understand and what the guys at DD have said, it's going to be more than one press release from them about their retired discs. So we're going to see a couple of waves, maybe, I'm not really sure. Definitely more than one. I am still a little bit concerned about some of the other discs in my bag, like the Caltrup. But unfortunately, right out of the gates in this first one, what I knew was coming was confirmed. And I actually literally just talked about this on the last episode. The Gobi's gone. It's out of production, and it is not even available for the custom run program. like some of the other retired molds that we saw from DD. So it's gone and it's never coming back, and that's all there is to it. So I have a whole bunch of them, as we discussed last week, and I should be covered, but I actually think I secured one more just in a trade with a local guy. I put it up on Instagram that it was out of production, and like, hey, if anybody has one laying around you don't want, let me know. Maybe we could work a trade or something, because I don't mind having them around, because I just really enjoy the discs. I think they're cool. I like collecting them, and obviously I carry like 2 or 3 at all times. So I'd like to have a whole bunch of them. I have maybe 15 or so, and it should be plenty. But all of the overmolds went out of production, which I 100% knew was coming. The Sarek, the Bryce, the Zion, the Fuji, which none of those discs really did much for me. I never even threw a Zion. But I think by the time I kind of was considering checking one out, I kind of saw the writing on the wall for the overmolds, and I was like, I'm not even going to bother. What if I really like it? I'm just going to leave it alone. I don't really need anything in that slot. Whatever. The Bryce, I didn't really connect with much, to be honest. The Sarek is a good disc. I enjoyed that disc. It was a good flyer. Somewhat inconsistent, though. Some were really domey. Some had a puddle top to them. Good flyer if you threw it well. Like, it was one of those discs that really showed your form. If you threw it with off-axis torque at all, it would wobble. So you have to throw it real smooth. But if you did, it flew really nice. Good smooth throwing putter, nice flyer, and a good disc that I think some folks will definitely be sad about. The Fuji, I didn't really care for too much. It seemed like slower, stable mid-range. It was nothing that really jumped out at me. But as you guys know, the Gobi is basically one of my favorite discs of all time. I would have to consider it my favorite mid-range of all time at this point. The Compass has been a great mold for me as well. I continue to throw one of those, but I found myself reaching for the Gobis much more often, and kind of worked some of the Compasses out of my bag. I used to layer a few different ones, and now it's 3 Gobis and 1 Compass, and then I have a couple of overstable discs in there as well, like an Anchor and a Justice for certain shots. But yeah, definitely, even though I knew it was coming, definitely still a little bit sad to find out, 100% that one of my favorite discs on the market was going away. But again, I made my peace with this. I had planned for it. I knew it was going to happen, and it is what it is. Also, we saw the Missalin and the Rakuten go out of production as well. They seem to feel as though while the hex pattern did reduce drag and increase the speed, it also sacrificed some of the glide, making it kind of a wash, where a regular wide rim disc wouldn't be quite as fast through the air, but it would have more glide and end up probably flying farther on average. I never even tested the Rakuten. It didn't seem like anybody cared about that disc. It was one of those discs that just kind of flew under the radar. Nobody seemed to really be too super interested in it. The Missalin was an interesting disc. It was a very unique flyer. And I'm sure some folks throw both of those molds and will hold on to them. And as I've said time and time again, with just discs in general, people love what they love. And every disc out there probably has a fan somewhere. Whatever the mold is, there's probably somebody out there that throws it and loves it and would be sad for it to go out of production, or was sad when it went out of production. There's a lot of guys that throw discs that have been out of production for a long time. I know there was a gentleman on, I believe, Central Coast at one point that threw nothing but DX Rams. He was throwing a DX Ram on like every shot. Love that disc. It's been out of production for a long time. He's got a whole bunch of them stockpiled. That's what he throws. That's great. If you're comfortable with that and okay with having to search for it, then I think it makes sense to continue throwing it if that's what you like to throw. It's definitely a little bit sad. The thing about the Gobi is that they are already out of stock basically across the internet from what I can tell. I don't know of any retailers online that still have them. Disc Golf Center, Infinite, Sun King, our good friends at Sun King, Dynamic Discs. None of those websites seem to have any Gobis in stock. I know the Disc Golf Depot had a couple on the rack last time I was there, at least one pink one there. I have a couple of discs laying around. I was thinking about maybe going and trading them in and grabbing that pink one, throwing it in my stock, but it might just end up being on the shelf there for another, couple of years, and if I need it, I can go grab it. Who knows? I don't think, as much as I love the Gobi, it's not a disc that really caught on very much either. As far as I know, me and AJ Risley were basically the only ones holding down the Gobis, I don't know. I would love to hit up AJ. Maybe I'll try to get a DM through to him on Instagram to see if if he's planning on continuing to throw it, or if he's going to move on to like a fuse or something else. I'm not really sure. Everybody on Team DD and the Latitude guys and stuff seem to be really digging the fuse lately. It's kind of like one of these discs that's made a resurgence. We've also been seeing a lot of people throwing Wraiths again. Conrad, I believe Madison Walker has a signature Wraith now. Double G's throwing the Wraith. I think even Ricky's rolling a Wraith right now as well. So we're seeing like the Wraith kind of come back in vogue a little bit. We're seeing a similar thing with the Fuse, where a lot of different players are throwing those now, and I didn't really hear much about those. I've never tested the mold myself, and now I'm intrigued. Hey, maybe I'll check one out. The only thing is, I have all these Gobis now. I'm committed to them. I love them. I have so many that I've paid for. I bought some of them. I traded for some of them, and spent time and resources on them and money. I'm not really necessarily looking for a disc that would be similar, because I can just throw my Gobis and whatever, but I still may check out a Fuse just to know. Maybe it's a nice, like, more flippy version of a Gobi where it'll hold the turn that little bit easier for certain shots. It might be nice to have 2 Gobis and 1 Fuse and 1 Compass. I don't know. I love mid-ranges in general, and Latitude has so many different mid-ranges that I've connected with over the years of testing them. They just have seem to just really, really do well with mid-range discs in particular. It seems like most manufacturers have like one thing that they do quite well. Like, to MVP's credit, I think they make really nice throwing putters, really great putters and throwing putters. I love that stuff. I loathe their high-speed drivers. I really don't like them at all. For a long time, we saw people throwing Buzzes and Discraft mid-ranges, and then Innova drivers. Innova seems to have like the really strong driver lineup, especially their fairways, like classic discs like the T-Bird and the Firebird. The Thunderbird's a great mold. Obviously, they have the Destroyer, and everybody makes great stuff. Don't get me wrong, but like, it does seem like Latitude's mid-ranges in particular, the Truth, the EMAC Truth, the Gobi, the Compass is a phenomenal disc. People love the Fuse. I love the Anchor. The Justice is just the king of the meat hook mid-ranges out there. I remember that, the Gatekeeper was solid. The Pine I tested was great. Like, I can't remember the last time I threw a Latitude molded mid-range that I really didn't like. The Fuji, I didn't really love it, but it's not like it was a bad disc. But yeah, it does seem that they just really, really have that dialed in. It's pretty interesting. Anyway, so it's a little bit sad, but life goes on. There's a lot of discs out there. I'm sure I could replace the Gobis if I really needed to, but I also have enough of them that I've decided for sure I'm just going to keep throwing them as long as I can, because I like them and they're fun. I like the way they feel. I like the way they look, and they're just a cool disc, and eventually will be kind of a little, just kind of footnote kind of piece of disc golf and Latitude 64 disc history. That'll be interesting to have in my bag if I live long enough for that to be a thing. So that's pretty much all I really have for you guys. We'll have to stay tuned to see what happens and what they tell us in terms of the next wave of discs. I'm definitely still quite concerned about the Caltrop. I think it would be a bad disc to take out of production, especially considering that they got rid of the Suspect and the Slammer. So that would really only leave like the Cenis and the Harp, but those are 2 pretty popular discs. So I don't know. We'll see what happens there. I know that there are probably enough Caltrops out there on the market and on the used market that I could get a few more and hold on to those for quite a while. And I've decided I'm going to do that as well, but I am definitely still concerned that those are going to be on the chopping block for this next wave of molds that they're going to tell us that they're taking out of production. But you know what? At the end of the day, a lot of the reason why they're taking these molds out of production is to put new ones into production that may end up being even better. who knows? Maybe they'll release a disc that's not an overmold, that's very similar to the Gobi, that has a similar kind of low profile, faster mid-range feel, and a nice, comfortable, rounded feel in the hand, and that kind of flat top thing that the Gobi has that I just love, that kind of low profile, quick mid-range that has like almost like a driver type vibe to it. And they'll make a disc that's very similar to that just doesn't have the overmold. And it'll be fantastic. Who knows? Maybe it'll even be better. You never know what's coming down the factory line there. So we'll see what happens, and we'll kind of go from there. But definitely a little bit sad to find out that my favorite mid-range on the market's going away. But I have plenty to throw, and I'll be just fine. What discs, if any, from either of these runs of retired molds were you throwing? Are you scared of any particular disc? Do you see the writing on the wall for maybe one of your favorite discs to be on its way out? Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for listening. I will check you all very soon.